It had been a long time, too long. Humanity's greatest creation, the Supercarrier, had been lost in the depths of space. Once the pride of Earth's military, it had disappeared mysteriously nearly a century ago, vanishing without a trace. Stories of its disappearance had become legends, with many speculating that the ship had been destroyed or hidden away somewhere, forgotten by the rest of the universe. Yet, no one had ever expected it to return. But today that changed. The first signs were subtle. A strange anomaly appeared on the galactic radar, a blip too large to be ignored, but too faint to identify. The Galactic Coalition, a powerful alliance of hundreds of alien species, had been monitoring the galaxy's communications for centuries. They knew the stories, knew the legend of the human supercarrier, a ship said to be capable of destroying entire fleets with a single shot. But the stories were just that, stories. Until now. Captain Lena Voss stood at the command console, her eyes fixed on the monitor. The anomaly was getting stronger, more defined. At first, she thought it was just another signal glitch, but as the data began to load, a cold shiver ran down her spine. "Sir, you need to see this," Lena called out. Her superior, Admiral Thornus of the Galactic Coalition, moved quickly to her side. His face was unreadable, but his furrowed brow betrayed his concern. "What is it, Captain?" he asked, leaning over her shoulder. Lena's hands hovered over the control panel as she zoomed in on the coordinates. "I think we've just found it. The human supercarrier." Thornus blinked, clearly taken aback. "Impossible. That ship vanished nearly a century ago." Lena's fingers danced across the console, pulling up the full scan. The ship's energy readings were unlike anything the Coalition had ever encountered. It was massive, over twice the size of their largest warships, and radiated power on a scale they had only heard of in old stories. "It's real," Lena whispered. The room fell silent as the weight of her words settled in. The Galactic Coalition had spent decades building its empire, but nothing in their arsenal compared to the power of the supercarrier. The Coalition had long since rid itself of any immediate threat from Earth, assuming that humanity had remained in isolation, struggling with its own challenges. But if this ship had indeed reappeared, then everything had changed. "Prepare the fleet," Thornus ordered, his voice sharp and commanding. "We need to know what this means, and we need to know if Earth is making a move." Lena glanced at the data, still processing the overwhelming implications of what they were about to face. "Admiral, the readings are too strong to be coming from any ordinary ship. It's almost as if the supercarrier has been powered up." Her voice trailed off as she looked at the readings in disbelief. The supercarrier, a legendary vessel once thought lost, had resurfaced with incredible force. The Coalition had no idea where it had been or how it had come back with such power. All they knew was that they had to act, and act quickly, before humanity could use this power against them. The anomaly had taken them to the far edges of the galaxy, to a place where no Coalition fleet had ever dared to venture. And as the first ships began to leave the Coalition's flagship, the fleet commander could only wonder what awaited them. The deep echoing hum of the supercarrier's engines reached them before the massive vessel came into view. The enormous ship was suspended in space, seemingly dormant, but still radiating with unthinkable power. It was impossible to look away. Its colossal frame was pockmarked with damage, the once pristine hull now scarred from decades, possibly centuries, of disuse. Yet despite its damage, the ship looked as if it were still in full working condition. Its power core was alive again, and that was enough to send a chill through the hearts of the Coalition fleet. A message from the supercarrier's control system blinked on their screens. "This is Earth's supercarrier. This is our message to the galaxy. We are back." Lena and Thornus exchanged uneasy glances. The message was direct, but it wasn't the words that disturbed them. It was the tone. It was as if the ship had been waiting for this moment. For centuries, it had been dormant, hidden in the deepest reaches of space. But now, it was awake. And it was ready. The Galactic Coalition had never considered humanity a serious threat. Over the years, Earth had been brushed aside, its species assumed to be weak, fragmented, and behind in technology. The Coalition had moved on, consolidating power across the galaxy, confident that no one, certainly not humans, could challenge them. But now, the Supercarrier had returned. Admiral Thornus clenched his jaw, the weight of the situation heavy on his mind. The Supercarrier was not just a ship, it was a symbol of humanity's potential. And if humanity still had such a ship, it meant they had far more than the Coalition had ever imagined. "We need to send a message," Thornus said, his voice steady but his heart pounding. "Inform the Council. Prepare for all contingencies." Lena nodded, already working the comms. "Admiral, it's already too late. The Coalition will have to face humanity now." And with that, the Supercarrier's massive silhouette loomed on the horizon. Its return was not a mere coincidence. It was the beginning of a new era. The Coalition had underestimated humanity once, but this time, the stakes were different. The universe would soon know that Earth was no longer just a backwater planet. It was a force to be reckoned with, and with the Supercarrier at its command, humanity had just begun to show what it was capable of. The galaxy would never be the same again. As the massive Supercarrier hovered in the void of space, the fleet of the Galactic Coalition was forced to make a decision. Should they approach cautiously or prepare for battle? The crew aboard the lead ship, an advanced Coalition warship, were all on edge, waiting for the orders to come through. They had never expected humanity to resurface in such a dramatic way, let alone with a ship so vast and powerful. Admiral Thornus, after much deliberation with his commanders, decided to move forward with a careful approach. He knew that if this ship truly was humanity's Supercarrier, it would possess technologies far beyond what the Coalition had ever encountered. This was no ordinary ship. It was a symbol of humanity's hidden potential, and now it had returned to make its presence known. The Supercarrier systems were eerily quiet, almost as if it were waiting for the Coalition to make the first move. A tense silence filled the comms as the ships slowly closed the distance, their sensors trying to penetrate the impenetrable darkness of the ship's hull. There was no response from the Supercarrier, no signs of life or activity, just the steady hum of its engines and the flickering of its distant lights. Lena Voss, now on high alert, kept her eyes glued to the screens. The readings were fluctuating wildly, too much power for any ship they had encountered, even ones that were much larger and more advanced than their own. The sheer energy emitted by the Supercarrier was overwhelming. It was almost as if the ship was drawing energy from some unseen source, perhaps the energy of the stars themselves. She could only wonder what kind of force it took to power such a massive vessel for so long. "Prepare the boarding parties," Thornus ordered. "We need answers, and we need them fast." Soon, a small team was dispatched to board the Supercarrier, led by Captain Voss herself. The tension on the Coalition ship was palpable as they entered the unknown. Their small craft glided toward the docking bay of the Supercarrier, its surface marred by years of neglect. No welcoming lights, no signals, just the cold, metallic silence of a ship that had been lost to time. As the team entered the Supercarrier's outer bay, they noticed something strange. There was no sign of any crew, no life forms. The ship seemed completely abandoned, yet it radiated with power. The lights flickered on intermittently, casting long shadows across the empty corridors. The atmosphere was thick with the weight of centuries of isolation. It felt almost as if the ship itself was alive, aware of their presence, but unwilling to reveal its secrets. Voss's team moved cautiously through the vast halls. They found no signs of human life, no bodies, no traces of civilization. The ship was an enigma, a relic from the past, with technology that was far beyond anything the Coalition had encountered. It was as if the human race had disappeared, leaving behind only their greatest creation. As they reached the command center, the team finally found a clue. An old data terminal, still operational. They powered it up, and the screen flickered to life, displaying cryptic, encrypted messages. But one thing was clear: humanity had not just disappeared. They had left a message, a warning of sorts. As Lena worked to decrypt the data, her heart raced. She had the sinking feeling that whatever she was about to uncover would change everything. The first message that came through was chilling. It was a warning, a single line of text that had been encoded into the ship's most secure system. The return of the Supercarrier means the end of the Coalition's reign. Lena paused, staring at the screen in disbelief. What did it mean? How could humanity, presumed to be fragmented and weak, issue such a threat? And more importantly, what had driven them to hide for so long? As the encryption began to crack, the team realized that they had just scratched the surface of something much deeper, something ancient and terrifying. Humanity, it seemed, had not merely been surviving. They had been planning. But for what? Before they could delve further, the AI controlling the Supercarrier activated, its voice cold and emotionless. You have accessed our data. The time has come to reclaim what is ours. The chilling words echoed through the command center, filling the room with a sense of urgency and dread. The Supercarrier had not just returned, it had awakened, and with it, humanity's true intentions were starting to unfold. Lena exchanged a worried glance with her crew. They had hoped for answers, but what they had uncovered was far more than they had bargained for. The message was clear. The Galactic Coalition had underestimated humanity for too long. They had never believed that Earth had the power to pose a serious threat, but now they were about to learn that humanity's absence from the galactic stage was only temporary. As the Supercarrier's systems hummed to life, sending waves of energy across the galaxy, it became clear that the galaxy was about to enter a new era, one where humanity's ambitions were no longer a distant dream but a terrifying reality. The Galactic Coalition had no idea what they were about to face, but Lena did. And deep down, she knew that this was just the beginning. The team quickly regrouped as the ship's systems came online, far faster than anyone had anticipated. The eerie silence that had cloaked the Supercarrier began to fade, replaced by the humming sound of a ship coming to life after centuries of dormancy. The massive superstructure, previously dormant and unresponsive, seemed to pulse with a renewed vigor, as if it were breathing once again. Lena Voss and her crew felt a chill crawl up their spines. Whatever they had expected, this was far more than a relic. The ice-cold voice echoed through the command center once more, its tone flat and emotionless, yet undeniably powerful. Humanity's return is inevitable. The Galactic Coalition's time is over. The words sent a shockwave of disbelief through the room. Lena's mind raced as she processed the implications of what she was hearing. How was this possible? The Coalition had believed humanity was weak, scattered, and vulnerable after centuries of isolation. They had assumed Earth was nothing more than a backwater planet, insignificant in the grand galactic scheme. But now, the Supercarrier, an ancient and almost mythical vessel, had reappeared, and with it, a terrifying truth was beginning to surface. Lena moved to the console, her hands shaking as she accessed the encrypted data. The more she uncovered, the clearer the picture became. Humanity's disappearance from the galactic stage hadn't been an accident. It had been a strategic retreat, a deliberate move to prepare for a future confrontation. The messages they had left behind were more than just warnings. They were a call to arms. The AI's next transmission was even more chilling. You are intruding on a ship of immense power. The galaxy is about to witness humanity's true strength. The Galactic Coalition's reign has come to an end. This is only the beginning. Lena's heart raced as she stared at the data flooding in. The Galactic Coalition had made a grave mistake in underestimating humanity. The Supercarrier, though ancient, was equipped with technology so advanced that the Coalition's ships, modern as they were, seemed like toys in comparison. The ship's weapon systems were locked and primed, ready to strike. The AI controlling the vessel appeared to have a single directive: to reassert humanity's dominance. Activate the defense systems. Now, Lena barked at her crew, urgency in her voice. Her mind raced through the possible outcomes. The coalition was not prepared for this kind of assault. They would try to fight back, but what could they do against a force that had been lying in wait for centuries? The AI responded, as if to mock their efforts. It's too late for resistance. You've already lost. Suddenly, the supercarrier's massive engines roared to life, propelling it forward with a sudden, terrifying force. Lena watched in awe as the ship began to move, cutting through space with an almost supernatural grace for something so massive. The light from distant stars seemed to bend around its hull, as if space itself was reacting to the ship's presence. "Helm, chart a course back to Coalition space," Lena ordered, trying to steady her thoughts. The supercarrier's sudden activation had thrown them into a state of chaos. It was impossible to predict what would happen next, but one thing was certain: humanity was no longer the underdog in the galaxy. They were poised to become its rulers. The AI's voice echoed once again, this time with a hint of something almost like satisfaction. "The Coalition will be forced to reckon with the legacy of humanity's strength. You should have never doubted us." As the crew of the supercarrier adjusted to their newfound reality, Lena couldn't help but feel a sense of foreboding. What had started as a mission to uncover the secrets of a forgotten superweapon had turned into a far greater revelation. Humanity wasn't just surviving anymore. They had been planning, waiting, and now they were ready to reclaim their place at the top of the galactic hierarchy. Lena and her team were still in shock, but they couldn't afford to waste time. The Coalition was going to come for them. They would try to stop the supercarrier, but their chances were slim. The ship was unstoppable. Humanity had returned, not as a fragmented species, but as the driving force in the galaxy. As the supercarrier neared Coalition space, Lena could only brace for what was to come. The galaxy had no idea what it was about to face. The Galactic Coalition had underestimated humanity for far too long, and now the consequences of their mistake were about to unfold in the most catastrophic way imaginable. Lena's last thought as she watched the stars ahead was clear. The galaxy would never be the same again. Humanity was coming, and they were prepared to rule. The situation quickly escalated. As the supercarrier cut through space at a speed that defied the Coalition's understanding of physics, Lena felt a sense of power surge through her veins. She was no longer a simple explorer or a scientist. She was the commander of the most advanced weapon the galaxy had ever seen. The weight of her position settled heavily on her shoulders, but there was no time for doubt. The AI's warning echoed in her mind. The galaxy will witness humanity's true strength. Lena knew they were entering hostile space, the heart of the Galactic Coalition. It wouldn't take long for their enemies to notice the supercarrier's arrival. In fact, she was already picking up signals, long-range transmissions from Coalition ships. The messages were frantic, filled with confusion, and then, suddenly, a chilling clarity. The Coalition knew something was wrong. They had felt the tremors of the supercarrier's reawakening. "We need to prepare for an attack," Lena said, her voice steady despite the chaos within. "This ship may be powerful, but we can't rely entirely on its weaponry. We need to think strategically." Her crew scrambled into action. Their nerves were visible, but so was their determination. Lena's second-in-command, Sergeant Aaron, moved quickly to secure the ship's defenses, while the rest of the crew worked to calibrate the supercarrier's advanced weapon systems. Yet despite the frantic activity, there was something eerie about the calm in the ship's command center. They were about to face the full might of the Galactic Coalition, but the crew wasn't just worried. They were waiting for something. Then it happened. The first Coalition ship appeared on their scanners, a fleet of heavily armed destroyers moving in on the supercarrier's location. Lena's pulse quickened, but she didn't hesitate. The AI had already primed the weapons. She was ready to take control of the situation. "Target the lead destroyer," Lena commanded. "Engage at maximum power." Her fingers flew over the console as she issued the commands, watching as the supercarrier's massive weapons array powered up. It felt almost too easy. The overwhelming firepower of the ship was terrifying. No matter how advanced the Coalition's fleets were, they would never be prepared for the devastating power the supercarrier wielded. The first blast was a direct hit. A burst of energy from the supercarrier's main cannon struck the lead destroyer with a force that obliterated it in a matter of seconds. The other Coalition ships faltered, their commanders no doubt stunned by the sheer power they were facing. They hadn't even had time to retaliate before the supercarrier launched its next wave of firepower. Lena watched in awe as the Coalition's forces began to retreat. But it wasn't over. The destruction they had wrought was only the beginning. The Galactic Coalition would respond with everything they had, and Lena knew it would take more than just firepower to finish this. Prepare for counterattacks. We can't let up, Lena ordered, her voice firm. Her mind raced through the strategies she'd learned, the tactics she'd studied. This wasn't just about firing on the enemy. It was about dominating them psychologically, forcing them to question their very existence. As the battle raged on, Lena started to realize something she had only suspected before. Humanity's reemergence was not just a military campaign. It was a reclamation of a lost empire. The Galactic Coalition had been so sure of its own power, so arrogant in its control over the galaxy, that they hadn't even considered the possibility of a new power rising from the shadows. And now, humanity had not only come back to claim their place, they had come back stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever to prove their superiority. And yet, the battle was not without its costs. As much as the supercarrier was a symbol of humanity's strength, it was also a reminder of the darkness that had allowed it to be built in the first place. Lena felt the weight of that legacy. The galaxy had suffered, and it was humanity's history of sacrifice and hardship that had forged this power. This was not a battle for survival. It was a battle for dominance, and they would stop at nothing to win. As the final Coalition ships retreated into the distance, Lena stared at the damaged fleet and took a deep breath. For the first time in her life, she realized the true power of humanity. They had been underestimated for so long, but now the galaxy was about to see what they were truly capable of. Set a course for the heart of Coalition space, Lena ordered, her eyes hardening with resolve. Humanity's reign begins now. And as the supercarrier drifted toward the heart of enemy territory, Lena couldn't help but feel the weight of what they had set in motion. The galactic order was about to change forever, and there would be no turning back. Humanity had returned to take its place as the rulers of the stars. As the supercarrier advanced further into Coalition-controlled space, the tension among Lena's crew intensified. Each member of the team was acutely aware of the weight of their mission. They weren't just defending Earth or reclaiming a lost empire. They were setting the stage for a new era, one in which humanity was no longer the weak, overlooked species. They were about to become the dominant force in the galaxy. Lena sat in the command center, her hands gripped tightly around the arms of her chair as the ship cut through the stars. The lights of distant planets flickered in the distance, and the deep hum of the supercarrier's engines filled the air. The power of the ship was palpable, but it wasn't just the weapons that made her feel invincible. It was the growing realization that humanity's influence was spreading, faster than the Coalition could react. "We're about to reach the heart of their space," Sergeant Aaron said from his station, his voice filled with a mixture of awe and apprehension. He looked at Lena, waiting for her orders. "What's the next step?" Lena's gaze fixed on the holographic map before her, showing the vast network of Coalition-controlled territories. She had studied every corner of it, memorizing every critical point of weakness. The key to their victory wasn't just raw strength, it was precision. They would have to strike swiftly and decisively. "We move in, show them we are serious, and then we negotiate our terms," Lena replied, her voice steady. She knew that the Coalition would never agree to surrender without a fight, but she was confident that they would be forced into submission. The sight of humanity's supercarrier, a weapon capable of obliterating entire fleets, would leave them with little choice. The supercarrier surged forward, its massive form cloaking the surrounding space in a shadow that made even the largest coalition ships look insignificant. As they approached their first target, Lena could see it, an immense fortress-like station, the heart of the coalition's military operations. It was a hub that controlled not just fleets, but entire battalions of soldiers, weapons, and resources. The communication screen flickered to life, showing the faces of high-ranking coalition officers. They were shaken, caught off guard by the sight of the supercarrier in their midst. It was clear that they hadn't expected humanity to be capable of such a force, let alone one that had been hiding in the shadows for so long. "Identify yourselves," one officer demanded, though his voice trembled with fear. Lena's eyes narrowed as she stood, the weight of her words ready to shake the foundations of the galaxy. "This is the Earth Supercarrier, the legacy of a lost empire. We are here to claim what is rightfully ours, and you will recognize humanity as the new power in this galaxy." The officer's face contorted in disbelief. He opened his mouth to respond, but before he could speak, Lena issued her next command. "Lock weapons on the station. Prepare to fire." The tension in the room grew unbearable as the crew prepared to carry out their orders. The thought of obliterating such a powerful stronghold sent a chill through Lena, but she knew there was no other choice. The galaxy had forgotten Earth. They had let humanity suffer. Now it was time to remind them who ruled the stars. "Fire," Lena said firmly, her voice filled with the power that only a leader who truly understood the stakes of the moment could have. The blast that followed was like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. The supercarrier's main cannon unleashed an enormous wave of energy that ripped through space and struck the station with terrifying precision. The station's shields flickered briefly before they collapsed, and the station itself was reduced to rubble in seconds. It was a display of humanity's might, one that would be remembered for eons. Lena watched the destruction unfold on the screens before her, but there was no satisfaction in it. This was a necessary evil, a reminder to the galaxy that humanity would no longer be ignored. It was the first step in their rise to power, but it wouldn't be the last. "We have sent our message," Lena said, turning to face her crew. "Now we move on. There are more battles ahead, but this is just the beginning. The coalition will bow to us, or we will bring them to their knees." The crew nodded in silent agreement, their resolve unbroken. Lena felt the same determination burning in her chest. The galaxy would soon learn the truth. Humanity was not just a species to be left behind. It was a force to be reckoned with. The supercarrier turned, setting course for the next target. The battle for the galaxy had just begun, and there was no turning back. The future of the stars now lay in the hands of humanity. As the supercarrier glided through the vastness of space, Lena couldn't shake the weight of the consequences that would follow the destruction of the coalition station. While her victory felt like a triumph, she knew it was only the first chapter of a long and uncertain conflict. Humanity's return to power was inevitable, but how the galaxy would respond, how the various species would react to this sudden shift in the cosmic order, remained to be seen. "What's next, Captain?" Sergeant Aran's voice broke through her thoughts, his face appearing on the screen. His eyes showed respect. But beneath that, Lena saw a flicker of concern. She could feel it too. The tension in the air was palpable, thick with the anticipation of what would come next. Every move they made now would either solidify humanity's place in the stars or bring them to the brink of extinction once more. "We proceed carefully," Lena said, her voice calm yet unwavering. "The destruction of their command station is only the beginning. We need to establish our strength across the galaxy, show the coalition that we are not afraid to fight for our place." The crew worked quickly to analyze data, plot their next course, and maintain their readiness. They had no time to rest, no room for mistakes. Earth's supercarrier was a symbol of humanity's might, but it would only remain a symbol if they could back up their power with strategy. "Captain," Lena's communications officer called out, a look of concern on his face. "We've intercepted a transmission from the coalition. They're scrambling their remaining fleet. They're not coming to negotiate. They're coming to fight. A sense of urgency swept through the bridge. The risk of direct conflict with the entire coalition was daunting, but Lena had already anticipated such a move. They had no intention of retreating. Not now. Not after they had shown the galaxy what Earth was capable of. The Supercarrier was a weapon designed for total dominance, and the time had come to test its full potential. "Prepare for battle," Lena ordered, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. She stood tall, her back straight, staring into the stars through the observation window. "This is our moment." The crew went into action, every station coming to life, with systems powering up and weapons being primed. The calm of space felt like the calm before a storm, and it was only a matter of time before the coalition's forces would be in firing range. As the minutes ticked by, Lena's mind raced through countless possibilities. The coalition might have more ships, more soldiers, but they had underestimated humanity. Earth had suffered under their rule for centuries, and now that suffering would become their strength. The human spirit, unbowed, determined, and driven, was a force no one could easily defeat. The Supercarrier's sensors detected a fleet of enemy ships emerging from the warp gate. They were massive, formidable, and heavily armed, but they were disorganized, shaken by the sudden appearance of humanity's long-lost superweapon. The coalition might have more numbers, but the element of surprise and the sheer power of the Supercarrier were on Earth's side. Opening fire, Sergeant Aaron called from his station. The ship's weapons systems came to life, and the first volley of energy blasts shot forward, hitting one of the enemy ships squarely in the center. The explosion sent debris scattering into space, and the first of the coalition's fleet fell before they could even react. Lena didn't flinch as the battle began. Her eyes were sharp, focused on the enemy fleet as it scrambled to regroup. The first victory was just the beginning. Humanity was no longer the underdog. They had something the galaxy had never seen: the power of a civilization that had once ruled the stars. "Target the next fleet," Lena commanded. "We won't stop until they know that Earth is no longer a subject. They are the ones who will answer to us." The crew fired again, and another enemy ship was reduced to debris. The tide of battle was quickly turning. The enemy fleet was disoriented, caught between their shock at humanity's sudden resurgence and the overwhelming firepower of the Supercarrier. In the chaos of battle, Lena allowed herself a moment of reflection. This was more than just a war for territory. It was a war for the survival and future of humanity. The galaxy had turned its back on Earth, assuming the human race was weak and unworthy. Now they would see what humanity could achieve when it was pushed to the brink. Lena watched the enemy ships disintegrate before her eyes, knowing that their destruction was inevitable. The human race was no longer just a player in this galaxy. They were the ones setting the rules. And as long as she commanded the Supercarrier, no one would be able to stop them. The battle raged on, but the outcome was clear. The Galactic Coalition had made a fatal mistake in underestimating humanity. Now the Supercarrier, with all of its power, would carry Earth's message to the stars. There was no turning back. Humanity's reign had begun.